My name is Sven Erik Knop. I work for Perforce. If you came here to see the title or the session, Rapid Deployment with Vasilics in 3 simple steps, then this is the right talk. I just had to change the title. Communication problem. Quick fire question. Who of you knows Perforce by name? Who has used Perforce before? Very few of them. Okay. The other question, of course, is continuous delivery. Are you using continuous delivery? That many. Do you want to use continuous delivery? It's more an aspiration than a reality, I find. If you come here to expect to get a single product that gives you continuous delivery, you are on the wrong talk. That no such thing exists. There are some ideas of what you can do, but first of all, why? Quick warning, this is actually a half-an-hour talk, condensed to 15 minutes, so I'm just going to give you a very quick overview with a live demo that has blown up in the past. We hope it doesn't do it this time. It's going to be a bit condensed. If you want to know more details, our stand is in the hall before us. Come and see us if you want to see any details. So why continuous delivery? Why do you want to do continuous delivery? Well, the usual problem is if you, as a developer, create something and then half a year later it goes in the product and it goes live, by that time you've forgotten what you've done with that. You're disconnected from the actual effort in there. You already moved all your development processes to be agile or using Scrum methods or something like that to work as quickly as possible, but then it takes ages to disconnect between you and the DevOps people to actually get it out there. How are we going to make this faster? Well, one of the idea behind continuous delivery is to improve this process. Work faster, that means that whenever you check something in, it pretty much immediately or within a short time is live somewhere where you can test the result of that. You can actually test it out on real customers if you want to, or at least the QA team. Every single check-in leads to a potential release. That's not a good thing. But as I said, this is not something that you can simply switch on by buying another product, as much as I'd like to sell you that. This is something that involves a change in culture and in process. Because that mostly means you need to be able to talk to each other. There's a little bit of collaboration involved in that. Suddenly, you as a developer need to talk to the deployment people, the QA people, the people who are responsible for down the chain, along the pipeline, to bring these things up and running. You have to be more flexible on that. Suddenly, your work might involve probably some of the stages of actually deploying something. Think about deployment scripts. If I modify this file in here, where do the underlying artifacts go? How do they fit together in the whole product that someone can actually test them out? But one of the most important features, one important basis for continuous delivery, and that's not just us saying. If you know Perforce, you know we are a versioning company, so we deal with versioning all your files. But the promoters of continuous delivery, we talk to ThoughtWorks or some other companies I've spoken with for a while, is version everything. Now, what does it actually mean? Well, it doesn't mean you have to version just your source code. I mean, when you were young developers and discovered the first time, I can version stuff and don't have to keep another copy with a different name somewhere, that was probably the first revelation. Certainly was for me. But this is just the first start. Out of your software, out to your right, comes artifacts that actually can be deployed. Now, those artifacts themselves, if you have to regenerate them every single time you want to deploy something, then chances are there's a different compiler, slightly different tweaks in there or something like that, that will result in your result things that worked on my desktop not being true anymore in the deployment environment. It goes on from there. There are differences in the other configuration files, so in the database, for example. Who of you is versioning databases? Fantastic. That's the first. Actually, I gave this talk and someone said, yes, we're doing that. Lots of people want to do that, or ask me, how can I do this? But it's an interesting problem. But if you change your queries and the database behind it hasn't changed as well, then your application will fail. So version everything means really to version every single aspect of that up to the point where you can deploy this. If you can deploy it out of your version management system, well, all the better. Some other things that come in there as well, the visibility and security in that. If you're involved in the whole process along the pipeline, then you need to be able to see all the parts that go into that. But of course, that means that you can touch all the live parts as well. Someone has to make sure that you not break anything, or if you do so, someone can follow that up. Why is this application not working? Why is this button not there anymore? Who made that change that actually resulted in this particular feature disappearing or not breaking? The detailed history along the line, that's the source code, that's all the configuration files, database files, and all the bits and pieces they need to bring that together. So what does that have to do with Perforce? Well, we claim that we can enable continuous delivering. Where Perforce is you can think of it as a big database, it can store everything. The difference to most other version management systems is that it just can't deal with single source files, but also with binary assets, which means all your artifacts that generate all the way down to, which we'll show in a moment here, whole Docker images you can put into Perforce as well. And you can deploy it directly out of there. Perforce is open to everything. It uses lots of tools that allow you to write not just normal standard source documents, but also your requirement documents, your binary artifacts. That's the reason why it's used in the gaming industry a lot, because the binary artifacts there want to be stored and versioned as well in the same, together with the source code, because they make up the one final game out of that. And this then also all the way down the pipeline, from your requirements to development, into your test environment, integrated into the final product and finally deployed. So I've got a little demo here, in the last 8 minutes, how this potentially could look like. And my demo environment, running a virtual machine, which is why it takes a little bit longer than I like. We've got the Helix server, a Perforce Helix server that stores all the artifacts in there. I've got Swarm, this is our review management system as well. I'm not sure I've got time to show you that, but if you're interested in that, then please see us later. Docker to actually create the images that we want to have in there, and Jenkins to fit it all together. I assume most of you use Jenkins. Fantastic. So what I also would like to do is quickly walk you through the Jenkins plugin that we have written that allows you to use Perforce from Jenkins and extract the data in there and also write them back. The demo scenario you probably know if you ever dealt with J2E. It's a good old pet store. Something nice and simple that can demonstrate and actually show you, okay, there is something happening in here. So the pipeline behind it, which I'm going to demonstrate now, that builds this whole stuff together. So now comes the part where things are supposed to work, or not. Okay, here's our pipeline. Ever used a pipeline before in Jenkins? Some people have, or workflow, the new workflow, working on that as well. So the pipeline, it's breaking down a build into several stages, and each stage itself can then trigger the other one if it's successful. Let's have a look at one of these stages here. Configure. Hello? There. Okay, so if you bring the plugin in as well, the Perforce plugin into Jenkins, then you find as a source code management, not just CVS or Git or something like that, but also Perforce software. You provide that with the credentials, which Perforce are we going to talk to, and since Perforce is a different other version systems that you're probably used to, it can steal and store any amount of data in it. So typically all projects are stored in one single repository. So you can specify which project you're talking about. And that's typically identified by a stream in this case, or a path. And then we populate the data from there in the workspace, go and build it using Maven. And at the end of that, I'm actually going to label this as a post step and publish the assets. That means write in this case, the WAR file that we need for the pet store back into Perforce as well. So all the steps in there are in one point there. So it tells me I'm running out of time. I need to actually get something cracking. So what I'm going to modify, here's my little pet store. I actually have two different instances of that. A QA instance running on port 8081, and I have the actual live instance running on port 8082. And the simple task I have here is I want to add more buttons to that. So instead of just having the cats and dogs, I want to add a few more of those. In my case, that's a very simple change. All I have to do is modify the index.html file, which I can do through different methods. In my case here, I'm going to use a very simple P4V. P4V is our standard tool that allows you to modify files within the Perforce server. Open out a text wrangler, and hopefully find the point where it said extract this stuff. Here we go. I cheated a little bit and prepared that already. Save this. So the file is modified. Okay, and then Perforce will check it in. Commit, so added a few more images. Okay, that part didn't break up. That's good. All right, so back to our pipeline. Start it off. So this takes a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, let me just quickly talk you different stages of the pipeline. Come on, wake up. So the first stage takes all the jar files and all the HTML files and everything else and creates the WAR file out of that. Wraps everything up, compiles it, puts it in a package, and submits this change back into Perforce as well, so you can trace back the change you've made to the artifact. We create a label over that that labels the change as well as the artifact to generate all of that. So it's very easy for us to track back again. This artifact was created from these particular changes in there. And then finally, of the next stage. Next stage in here, we're building the Docker image. So pulling the stuff into the Docker image itself. And actually, there's Puppet involved as well, which just trigger Puppet within the Docker image itself that then goes to the Perforce server, pulls the stuff out into the Docker image and deploys it there. The other stage that takes a little bit longer. It actually takes the whole image, zips it all up, and stores it in Perforce, so you have the Docker image itself as well in your artifact storage. And then the next step over there, it automatically deploys it into your QA environment, so that the QA people can immediately look at that and see the difference in this. The last step, the live step, that is something a human has to intervene and has to do something with it. Otherwise, would you trust a developer to make a change in one stage that immediately goes live to the website? I don't. And I'm a developer myself. Okay, so let's have a look whether we have made any progress in there. Let's just deploy in the last steps. Okay, here we go. So if everything worked correctly, then a refresh here would have added more images. Now look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Remember that the live system here is untouched, but the step of making let me just refresh here, there's a refresh button there, making my live system identical to my QA system, exactly what I tested before should work, is simply now taking that Docker image and redeploying it again. It takes a few seconds. It comes out the same Perforce server. Everything is trace backable to the original change into my index file in this case that I have. So if I now back to home and press, and there we are. Live system up and dated. That's all I have time for, I'm afraid. But if you want to see more details, if you want to see more information about Perforce, about continuous delivery of how we use it ourselves or how our customers use it, then please see it on our stand. We also have a competition running. You've probably seen us if you came into the hall for a Star Wars Lego Star Wars Fighter, X-Fighter, which you can win if just leaving a business card or filling out a form. And we also have nice T-shirts out there. So please come along and see us all stand. Thank you much for your attention.